Good evening. Diabetes is one of the non-communicable diseases that's on the rise. According to the World Health Organization, the prevalence has been rising more rapidly in low and middle income countries than in high income countries, that is, Kenya included. It's a chronic disease that can lead to stroke, heart disease, blindness, limb amputation, among other complications. Now, but it can be treated and its health complications avoided or delayed with the right treatment and proper management. Tonight on Health Check, we'll be having Dr. Paul Ngugi, an endocrinologist, who will be sharing with us more information about diabetes in addition to answering all your questions as you send them in on the SMS line 22232, that is 22232, or on Facebook and YouTube. We are live, by the way. Our handle is at Hope TV Kenya. Remember to share this and tell a friend who needs to learn about diabetes. We are live at Hope TV and also at Hope TV Kenya on Facebook and YouTube. Good evening. My name is Grace Mutiso and welcome to Health Check this brand new week. I hope you're well. Today, it's all matters diabetes. Allow me to introduce to us this evening Dr. Paul Ngugi. Good evening, Daktari.
Good evening.
You well?
I'm well.
You know, we were talking off and you said last time you were here was when COVID was high.
Very high.
Yes. But we thank God you're well and karibu to the program.
Thank you very much for the invite.
Yes. Okay. Let's begin by defining who is an endocrinologist.
An endocrinologist is a specialist in internal medicine, so to say, who has studied mostly the study of hormones. And the hormones start from the brain, where you have the pituitary that produces many hormones. You come to the thyroid, you come to the pancreas producing insulin, you come to the adrenals producing cortisol, you go to the ovaries, estrogens, the testes producing testosterone. In short, that's what an endocrinologist does.
Mm.
But mostly in terms of practice, it's mostly diabetes that consumes most of the endocrinologist's life.
Yes. Okay. And we are focusing on diabetes today. And when you talk about diabetes, some of the common words I've been able to hear is pancreas, insulin, blood sugars. How are these connected to diabetes before we get to define what diabetes is?
Well, diabetes as a disease is a disease that comes when your body is not able to utilize your sugar, the sugar you get from your food. Generally, most of our food is digested in sugar. And that sugar has to come from the stomach via the blood system, enter your cells and give you energy. Because sugar is what petrol is to a car, sugar is to the human body. It gives energy to the brain, to all your limbs, but it must enter. And to avoid what we call like flooding, there's a regulation that there's guided entry, so to say.
Yes.
And that guided entry, the doors are opened by a substance made by the body called insulin. And the insulin will be produced by the pancreas when the food starts reaching the stomach. Or immediately you eat the food, the pancreas releases insulin. And to some extent, when you start chewing the food, the pancreas starts getting ready and making insulin to prepare to open doors for the sugar to enter your body. When the pancreas is malfunctioning, so to say, and is not producing enough insulin, or the insulin that it's producing is not efficient, the sugar starts to go up. And when sugar goes up, it goes up beyond a certain range. Usually the critical number here is if your sugar goes above 7 when you're fasting, or 11.1 outside fasting or random sugar or after eating, then you say you have diabetes. But there is a process by which you get there, which I think has become more important these days. When the sugar starts to go up before it even reaches the diabetes, there's a state we call pre-diabetes these days.
Yes.
When the sugars may be above 5.5, going to 7, fasting, then you say you're pre-diabetics. So there are various strategies of intervention at various states, either pre-diabetes or diabetes. So in short, that's what diabetes is. But I need to add that there are two types of diabetes that are prevalent and known. There is type 1. And type 1 usually afflicts children, maybe mostly below age of 20, but you can go up to 35 with type 1. And this type of diabetes has different causation or different process by which you get around it. Eventually you lack insulin, but this one, the pancreas is destroyed by what we call autoimmune process.
Yes.
By autoimmune process, we mean antibodies are developed in the body. And like you know, antibodies attack bacteria
Yes.
and germs. But this time, these antibodies, instead of attacking bacteria and germs, decide attack the beta cells, the cells that produce insulin. And when you're being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, you're very sick because you have no insulin whatsoever. So it comes very short, in a very short period of time. And you get type 1 diabetes, and then from onset, you'll be treated with insulin from the onset. So it's a much more dramatic type of diabetes. The type 2 diabetes, the one that I saw from your intro, comes, that is growing up, increasing in the less developed countries, or that world, using another word. This has a process that starts with the lifestyle and genetics.
Yeah.
By genetics, I mean you're born predisposed, and then the lifestyle assists the process. By lifestyle, and that will involve feeding, the foods we are eating, and your intro is very clear that it's increasing that. But what is happening in that world is that we have a middle class that's growing up, that is enjoying, quote unquote, what they call good food, but in reality, it's not good food.
Yes.
They like eating fast foods. They're eating on the run. So having a pizza and you're eating it in the office, they think it's cool.
Yes.
Having a burger or whatever, and then swallowing it with a soda. All these things have a lot of sugar and a lot of fat. So in reality, what will happen is over time, people will gain weight. And then because we get rich, we drive cars, and our road system doesn't allow us to walk on our roads because mud, water will be splashed on you,
Yes.
water will come raining on you. So you better ride a matatu or drive a car. So we, lack of a better word to use, I think we become lazier as we get richer, and exercise becomes, some clients tell me if I'm seen walking in the village, people will think I'm grown crazy. That's what is Morimu doing, walking like aimlessly.
Yeah.
That's the group that's getting diabetes because they're upper middle class. They'll be teachers, doctors, lawyers, policemen, and sometimes even drivers. So I said lifestyle contributes a lot in type 2. And type 2 is bigger numbers. Nearly 90% of our diabetic population is that type 2.
Yeah.
That's lifestyle driven. The type 1 are not that many. So in short, I mean, try to summarize a very big, complicated problem in those few words, and I think I could pause there.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say, Dr. Harry, it's about the pancreas and insulin. So if pancreas is not able to produce, diabetes comes in.
Yes.
So is it hereditary?
To a big extent, there is that genetic hereditary component, but it's not invariable that if your parents have diabetes, you get diabetes. Or it's not like everybody in that family will get diabetes. It will depend on very many things. And that's why I said the initial architecture for diabetes is there in your genes. But then you put the building blocks by the way you eat, the way you don't exercise, the way you using other chemicals, alcohol, cigarettes, all those things.
Yes.
But mostly diet and lack of exercise contributes a lot. And people gaining weight, and your BMI goes above 25, 30, then you start seeing yourself at that risk.
Okay. Yeah. Let's now move to some of the signs and symptoms of diabetes.
The signs and symptoms of diabetes are both for type 1 and type 2, I would be about the same. So maybe perhaps I'll go through them. The basic one is the urination, urinating a lot and drinking water. But before this one comes up, there'll be a time that you'll be noting some fatigue, unusual fatigue, tiredness. Maybe when you go home, you eat supper, the first thing you do, you just sleep on the sofa. News cannot get finished. You can't watch a program like this to the end, you're dozing. And sometimes you start losing weight. And sometimes the loss of weight is so dramatic that when HIV was so prevalent, people feared going to hospital so that to avoid being diagnosed as HIV.
Yeah.
Also, as the disease progresses, you find you're not able to focus, you find your glasses are not working, you go to the optician, they give you another set of spectacles. By the evening, they're not working. So you find something like that happening. Then there is vaginal thrush that ladies would get, and again, they go to many gynecologists, and it's keeping on recurrent. And sometimes there are other signs that may come pretty early on, especially in ladies when they get pregnant. They have big babies, babies of 3.8 kilos, 4 kilos, and they may have a situation we call gestation diabetes that will come maybe some years before you get diabetes. Gestation diabetes is the diabetes you get when you're pregnant, second trimester, and then when you deliver the baby, it goes away.
Oh.
And when it goes away, it doesn't say, it actually is a warning sign
Yes.
that you may get diabetes. That could be an early sign. So those ones, again, in our villages, because again, in the villages, it's a bit different setup because I have found many patients coming to me because they have a wound that's not healing.
Yes.
They went to the shaba, they were pricked by a thorn or a nail, then the wound festered and you find it's rotting. And if nobody in the periphery remembers to test the sugar, eventually they end up being amputated even before they're diagnosed to have diabetes. So we may have woods that are the earliest signs of diabetes. Again, you notice that people in the villages do not eat as much as we eat. So their sugars may not go that high very fast. Because you can imagine if you had get for breakfast and
Yes.
you have not eaten lunch, proper lunch. So your sugars will never go that very high,
True.
as opposed to the urban setup. So those would be, I can recap the symptoms again. Commonest is drinking a lot of water, urinating a lot of water, infection, feet infection, loss of weight, tiredness, big babies, and of course, I said the vaginal thrush. I must add the children who are not talking for themselves. Sometimes you find a child who is breastfeeding pretty well, but is not gaining weight.
Yes.
Is always hungry, irritated. Nappy rash, severe nappy rash, may be signs of a child who is getting diabetes.
Okay. Well, um, Dr. Paul could be talking and they're saying, hi, I think I'm observing there could be some symptoms around there. And I know you have a question, my dear viewer. Remember, you can get in touch with us. Our SMS is 22232. That is 22232. Drop there your question. Also, let us know where you're watching us from and your name. We'll be glad to ask Dr. Paul your question. Remember, you're talking about diabetes, and Dr. Paul Ngugi is an endocrinologist. We are also live on Facebook and YouTube. Our handle is at Top TV Kenya. We'll be sampling some of your questions from that platform. Dr. Paul, when you're talking about the symptoms, you mentioned something about taking a lot of water and visiting the loo so often.
Yeah.
How will I be able to differentiate that from I'm just healthy, I just love drinking my 8 glasses?
You would know that perhaps at night. Because even when ladies drink the water they drink of 8 glasses breakfast, what, blah, blah, blah. When you sleep, you may be able to sleep and go to the loo once or twice. And that's your pattern.
Yes.
But when your pattern changes that you're going 6, 8 times, you'll notice a change.
Yes.
You'll notice a change when you get so thirsty. And what used to happen, I think when sodas were very commonly taken, somebody will say, my thirst cannot be quenched other than that if I take a soda. Maybe not to mention any soda, but a cold soda.
Oh, yes.
And then they'll drink not the 300, the 500. Then there's like the sugar goes very high, then they urinate, then they get thirsty again.
Yes.
Then they'll come and tell you, nothing quenches my thirst. Because you see, there's a difference of drinking water because you want to maintain your skin shiny and smooth. But there's another one that was quenching thirst. So I think when you notice the pattern that is changing in terms of waking up at night, in normal situation, people wake up 1 to 2 times. And people have their own routines.
Yeah.
If your routine is 1, now you're waking up 3 times, then something is amiss.
Yes. Yes. I was also interested about diabetes in children, and you mentioned especially the younger children who are not able to speak.
Yes.
Apart from maybe noticing them, they're not feeding well, what else should tell a mother or a parent? You need to take this child to be checked, maybe could be diabetic.
I said they will be listless. I mean, like, tired, wasting away. And the children can get very sick because there is another complication of diabetes the children get called diabetes ketoacidosis. And this is a very sick child. The child will be vomiting, the child will be breathing badly, we call it Kusmal breath. And the child will be breathing a breath that smells like overripe bananas, fruity smell
Ah.
because of ketones. You know, the ketones, the ketone diet people are taking these days. They've heard of keto diet.
No, no, no. Oh, yes, yes, I've seen.
They've heard keto diet.
Yes.
And keto diet means that your body is using fat for energy. So since the child doesn't have insulin, they started breaking their own fat for energy. And they have that breath of ripened fruits. But the child will be very sick. You'll be vomiting, not retaining, breathing badly. And that's an emergency, usually an ICU setup. So within 2 weeks' time, from the beginning to when the child is very sick, it will not take more than that time. So you see the child deteriorating very fast.
Yeah. That means as a parent, you need to watch out, the child behavior and noticing if anything is strange. So I wanted to ask, we talk also a bit about diabetes in pregnancy.
Yes.
Yeah. How is that journey and how are we able to help the mother? Because you mentioned you give birth to a big baby, 3 point, and I think that's the prayer of every woman to give birth to a healthy baby, at least
Some
3
of them are
kgs.
big. They're very big. Five kilos
Oh
onwards.
my.
Let me explain. There is that gestation diabetes that I mentioned before that you get when you're pregnant. You didn't have it before.
Yes.
That is maybe not as serious as the other one when you have this may come not so aggressively, and usually speak by most obstetrician now, they do what's called routine checkup for diabetes. Because again, when mothers have sugar, the children are very big. You may not be able to deliver them vaginally. So most likely they'll be cesarean section. So you need to monitor that because if you want to deliver them normally, they may have distress and the outcome may not be very good. Also, diabetes, kids who are born with mothers with high sugar sometimes may have some problems, some abnormalities, and they're not very mature during delivery. So it means that the obstetrician must be ready for that child in terms of giving medicine near term to make sure the lungs mature for the outcome.
Yeah.
Also to decide the delivery mode because of the size of the baby. So most times you also don't want mothers to go beyond term. You know, like the way you say, I'm going to 41, 42. Because also the risk of stillbirth or fetus dying in utero or in the uterus is quite high.
Yes.
So you want to deliver them in a good time when the baby is mature, but do not want to go post-date. So you have to plan. Most diabetic patients have to have delivery planned, not labor at home and come and go to labor. There must be a plan.
Yes.
So it is important. The other thing I wanted to mention is that also the child when he's born, because you need to know, because the child can also get very low sugar, because what happens, the child produces a lot of insulin within themselves.
Yes.
So when they're disconnected from the placenta, they're not having food when they're coming out. So that can also cause them problems of low sugar. So for that, planning is critical. But then there is the other person who has diabetes and wants to have children.
Yes.
And they can, and they do have their families. But what's important is that mothers or young ladies who are going to the family, they must control their sugars very well. That means their sugars must be within the range of between 4 and 7. Mm-hmm. And there's a test we call HbA1c, that tests sugar 3 months, must be below 7. So there is what we call preconception stage. Yes. So you go and talk to your diabetes specialist and tell them, I want to get pregnant. Then they check you, then they tell you, now your sugar is not very good. Give us 3 months or 4 months. We walk on a journey with you, control your sugars. Because when your sugars are good, the outcome of the pregnancy is good. Yes. The outcome of the fetus is also good. And the mother's health is protected if they get pregnant with good sugar. don't forget, not forget, I think I just want to inform the viewer that if you're pregnant and your pregnancy is not well controlled, then there are risks of getting other complications of pregnancy. Now, during pregnancy, usually, perhaps most times you'll stop the oral tablets if you're taking oral tablets, and you may be converted to insulin so that you get good control of your sugars. And you stay with insulin until you deliver, and maybe later on converted to your previous medication. But the journey of pregnancy and diabetes, good control. Before pregnancy, intra-pregnancy, and there's, like everybody else, good control at all times. Yeah. Because we realize that most pregnancy in marriages is not planned. It's accidental, isn't it? Rarely it's planned. Rarely it's planned.
Yes.
When in the marriage, it's
Yes.
rarely planned.
Yes.
It comes, the baby comes.
Yes.
It's a blessing.
Yes.
So you would want to control your sugars well at all times. That's why, and again, you're also protecting complications that may come later around pregnancy. It's not automatic a child will be diabetic. The children are not necessarily going to be diabetic because the mother is pregnant. Because sometimes mothers get very scared.
Yes.
They ask, will my child have diabetes? Not necessarily. And the child will rarely have diabetes. Maybe when the child becomes mature, if they do not look at their lifestyle properly, they may get diabetes.
Okay.
And that's why I would like to add that there are those type 2 diabetes of adulthood that we are getting in children these days. The children are getting the diabetes for adults, again, because of overweight and the diets they are eating.
So lifestyle is very important.
It's important from the word go. And perhaps the mothers who are viewing, perhaps it's important that we reinvent ourselves in the way we feed our children.
Yeah.
Don't expect your child to know how to eat when they are 20. If you taught them to take junk when they are in kindergarten, primary school, and high school, they will not take githeri or morokoi when they are adults, or ugari and skuma. They will not agree to do that.
Yeah.
But more so, at that age when they are teenagers, they will take a lot of calories, carbohydrates, excessively, and they gain a lot of weight. And that is a risk for them to get diabetes, even at that early age. And what we know is children who get diabetes at that early age, the adult type, it's very aggressive. It's not like adults.
Yes.
So whatever we do as a society, we must go into the space where we encourage our children to eat healthy, where we're encouraging our children to exercise. It is not a big deal to ask your son who is 10 to clean your car.
Yes. That's good exercise.
Yes, a good exercise. Of course, ride a bike with him over the weekend and go and walk with him in Karura.
Yes.
All to wash dishes with you in the kitchen when they are 4 years old, to start them from the word go, to be active. Yes. It helps them in the long term.
Okay. Yeah. Before we go to a break, I'd want to ask, are the symptoms of diabetes similar? We've mentioned more about ladies and children. Is it similar to men, or men experience a different thing?
It's similar, only that the issue of the fungal infection is not maybe common in men, unless the men, uncircumcised men. But they can get other infections elsewhere in the feet and elsewhere. But it's basically the same, other than the complication may be different. We know we have not reached discussing complication for diabetes. Yes. And there may be some slight differences.
Okay. And you're on Health Check right here at Hope TV. Look and live. My name is Grace Mitusa. I'm hosting Dr. Paul Ngugi. He's an endocrinologist. And we're talking about diabetes. Do you have any questions? 22232 is our SMS line. And you can get us at Hope TV Kenya on Facebook and YouTube. Drop there your question. We'll be glad to answer you. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. After the break, we'll be able to get back to your questions. Before we get on a break, Daktari, tell us about how the diabetes is diagnosed.
A diagnosis of diabetes is it's something that has gone through a long journey. In the long time ago, people used to taste urine. I mean, in actual fact, like people, when you urinate somewhere, you would see that there'll be ants that look for sugar. But later on, as we went on, they started testing urine with something called a dipstick. When you put something in the urine, it changes color and it has sugar. We moved on, then the blood sugar testing machine. Right now, there are simple things. We call them glucometers. That you remove a small drop, and you put it in the glucometer. There's a place that you're going to put. Then it tells you the sugar level. Usually, the sugar levels should be between maybe 4 and 5.4. But if you notice it's going above 7, then and it's attention, especially if you have not eaten. If it's above 7, then you know you have diabetes. The other diagnostics tool that is being used these days is a test called HbA1c, which basically means this test tests the sugar being carried by red blood cells. And the red blood cell has a life of 3 months in your body. Now we're in the month of November. The red blood cells that were made in August are still in my system. So if they are carrying sugar, we know. The ones that they were there in October are still there.
Yes.
So they are known. So when you average the sugars, then you are able to know this person has been carrying more sugar than he should have been carrying. That's what we call HbA1c. Usually normal should be below 5.5, but between 5.5 and 6.5 is what I mentioned, a situation we call pre-diabetes.
Yes.
Then above 6.5 is diabetes. The advantage of this is that you can test anytime. You come to me in the afternoon, I test it, then it's 6.5, I tell you have diabetes, and we start the journey.
Yes.
Sometimes, if that's not available, because it may not be available in all places, then you have to do the blood test, the blood sugar test. I think the diagnostic tools are reasonably quite spread that there may be not anybody be testing with the urine. And in any case, the urine testing is not accurate. It will not help you diagnose diabetes. You have to do the blood test.
And you've mentioned the journey. It's been an interesting journey.
Yes.
Can somebody test, their sugar level at home, or you have
Actually,
to?
yes. No. These days, the glucometers are everywhere. We're even giving them free from offices that you can test your sugar. Most patients who have diabetes are encouraged to test sugars at home so that they know where they are. You see, like, you can't wait until you see a doctor in 2 months or 3 months' time. Although a large population in Kenya and most of the third world, they test sugar and they go to see the doctor. And even patients, they will tell me, daktari, mimi sitaki kujua. Wewe ndio utajua, nikija utajua.
Yes.
But it is encouraged, they're encouraged to test, and not once,
Yes.
many times. To the extent there are gadgets that we have them in this country, we call them continuous glucose monitoring,
Yes.
where you have it permanently put in you, and it communicates with Bluetooth to a device like your phone.
Yes.
That you just pass it there and it reads your sugar. So it's moved very fast.
Yes.
There are others, we call them closed loop, that you're giving insulin, but the same loop is testing your sugar and making adjustment. So it's moved very fast.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Allow us to go to a quick break at this point. When you come back, we'll be sampling some of your questions and comments on 22232 and also at Hope TV Kenya. That's on Facebook and YouTube. We're talking all about diabetes. I know you, mostly it's children who say, my dad or my mom has, what do I need to do? Can I get him what? Please, I'll ask those questions today. Or you're watching us, you're that elderly person or young person and you're living with diabetes and you have any question, 22232 is our line. Keep it Hope TV, look and live. We'll be back shortly.
This week on Testify.
This life is enjoyable. It's at that time, it was enjoyable. It was fun.
It was fun. It was fun.
Yeah.
But little did I know that my mom was crying.
Oh.
Yeah. My mom was crying every day. And I can tell you, for so many days I came home and I heard her praying and telling God, may you give me one. Give me one, because 4 of my brothers were out drinking.
Wow.
Only on Hope TV. Look and live. Every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Spotlight.
Do you feel like they are in a place where they can effect a Barack Obama moment?
When you hear the word of God and you hear Jesus is speaking.
Real talk on real issues.
The Bible says faith without works is dead.
The truth of the gospel that will survive the time is not a health and wealth gospel.
When there is time to harmonize and bring one composite amendment.
With idealistic, thought-provoking guests.
So people come to be serviced, to be encouraged, to be empowered.
When the storm is over, you desire the closeness you have with God.
Hosted by Reverend Edward Furi. The marketplace. Different players, different principles. What will make you stand out and occupy the marketplace? Occupy Today, Sundays from 8 p.m. exclusively on Hope TV. Look and live.
Welcome back to Health Check right here on Hope TV. Look and live. My name is Grace Mutiso, and I'm having Dr. Paul Ngugi, an endocrinologist. It's all about diabetes. So I hope you're learning the same way I'm learning. And in this hour, we'll be looking at your questions. So keep them coming. Let us know where you're watching us from, and if you have any question or comment regarding diabetes. So, Dr. Let's talk about the steps. So, a patient has walked in, you've done the test, and yes, you have diabetes type 1 or 2. Yes. So, what is the next step from there?
Now, this is a traumatic event, yeah?
Yes.
People associated with diabetes, very many serious, fearful, worrisome complications. So, I think the immediate step to me will be to educate this person, to talk to this person, to reassure the person,
yes,
to give them hope, to give them, reassure them that diabetes is not a death sentence, because most people get it like that. That my grandfather, my uncle had diabetes, they died. Somebody has got renal transplant, he has diabetes.
Or they were amputated. I
Or
think
you're
I've had many of those ones.
So there's a panic. And we are taught that after you diagnose, that you should take time with that person, explain to them about diabetes, what it is, explain them how they will walk the journey. It's not the time to admonish or scare the patient with, unajua vile unakula ndio inaleta hii shida. You don't go that. You don't go that side. You don't go there. You talk to the patient in a nice, reassuring manner. You educate them, then briefly you mention the lifestyle changes you would expect from them. And you find within 30 minutes, if you're good enough and you spend 20, 30 minutes with them, by the time you're finishing 30 minutes, they feel comfortable and they feel like they have a partner. Because being a condition is a lifelong thing. And what that patient will be looking for is a partner to walk with them the journey.
Yes.
So you are trying to reassure them that you'll be there for them, you'll be a partner. And to some extent, most of us dish out our phone numbers to all of our patients because they'll have a crisis at home and they don't know who to call. Yeah. And clinics, we have clinics that have hotline numbers that people can call numbers. And this is done all over the world, that we have a continuous diabetes. So the first thing is to assure the patient. Then I think there's a dietitian that needs to be, diet education that needs to be done the same day. If you don't have a dietitian and you're a doctor, perhaps you should use your basic knowledge to educate them before they get a proper diet education. Once that is decided, then you'll decide this patient is going to tablets, is going to insulin, where you channel them, depending on how the sugars are. If the patient is very sick and the sugars are very high, we have to admit and control the sugars with insulin and discharge on tablets. If the patient has an infection, you may have to admit again, treat with insulin. If the sugar are not that high and the patient is, other than the sugar is not a problem, then you can prescribe medicine and they go home and then you can have a review. But it's important during that time of admission, of diagnosis, that you also plan to check for complications. Because we know a big number of these patients, especially the adults, by the time they're coming to see you, they have got complications already.
What do you mean by complication, Dr.?
Now, diabetes is the single most common cause of blindness other than trachoma. So the eye changes occur slowly. That's one of the complications of diabetes.
Yes.
You get in the retina, behind there in the eye, the retina gets damaged by blood leaking and blood vessel damages. And you need to examine them that moment. You need to plan out they're going to have an ophthalmologist check them that time. So that's one complication.
Yes.
The other complication is in the kidneys. You need to check the kidney function of that patient so that you know where you're starting.
Yes.
The other thing is that these patients come with other say comorbidities or parallel diseases like high cholesterol. And high cholesterol is when your fat levels are high in your blood, that eventually can cause heart attack or stroke. So you want to assess that because both cholesterol and diabetes can attack the heart, damage the heart. So you want, as you're treating the sugar, you're also treating cholesterol. Yeah?
Yes.
You also need to examine, you want to examine the feet for another complication called neuropathy, and that's one that leads the patient to having ulcers that are not healing well. By feet, you want to check for, there's something we call cones that people say is the shoes, but diabetes get things we call calluses, that's hardening of the skin on the sole. And those calluses also cause ulcers when they get so advanced. The skin of the people with diabetes, if they have neuropathy, they have lost hair on their feet, especially they're men and they have no hair, and the sensation is impaired. So you want to check for all those things.
Wow. So many complications there.
So you also want to do an ECG.
Yes. Yeah. So it mentioned, especially the elderly come with a lot of complications. So in that case, where do you start?
Now, you see, now, you will treat the patient wholesome.
Yeah.
So as you treat the sugar, you also need to know how to treat the cholesterol. You also need to, because the BP is also very high, blood pressure is also very common in diabetic patients. And there are different standards of controlling blood pressure in diabetes as opposed to the other population. So you need targets that are very strict. You want your blood pressure 130 and 80 and below. And the other people, you are saying 135 or 140. So if a diabetic person comes as 140 or 135, that means they have hypertension. You must start treating it immediately. Because when you're treating diabetes, to avoid those so-called complications that I mentioned before, and also to look after the heart. Because having said all this, all of us leave this world one way or the other by heart malfunctioning.
Yes.
So you must look after that heart that is being assaulted by diabetes, cholesterol, blood pressure. So you need to look at all those things.
Okay. And then is it's diabetes treated or managed? And can it be healed totally? So that you say, I've gone through this treatment, diabetes, goodbye, I'm whole.
Diabetes treated, but treatment and cure are two very different things. I do not think as of now we can talk about diabetes cure. Diabetes can go into remission. That means you can manage your diet so well, lose so much weight, and your sugar stabilizes, sometimes without medication. Then that we say, but still, you still have diabetes, but it's in remission. You can get out of remission anytime you deviate. People, when they get bariatric surgery, they get into remission. You know, a lot of bariatric surgery.
Yes.
Where you get cut part of the stomach, and if they have diabetes and they're overweight, they lose like 20 kilos, then their diabetes goes away and they do not need medication. But immediately they start gaining weight, it comes back. So there is no cure for diabetes. Of course, there are those I'll call, let me say, alternative practitioners who practice alternative medicine, who you see billboards, TV adverts, and they are curing diabetes within I don't know how many hours or how many days. You drive across the border to Kakunywe Kikobe Ababu, then you come back, you say your diabetes is cured.
Yes.
I don't think there's anything like that. If there was, I always say, if you can cure diabetes, you'll be like Bill Gates tomorrow. Because we talked about high numbers, going to nearly 1 billion people.
Yes.
You'd be very rich. So you'll not be hiding somewhere in Italy saying you're curing diabetes. No.
Okay. So the next place to go is...
And people must understand that, they must follow a treatment that works. If a treatment is not working, do not bury your head like the ostrich, that you're taking a treatment that's good. Monitor your sugars, check your sugars, the glucometer. Know the sugars are good. Because I think patients should also avoid that when they test their sugar and it's 10, 9, says sukari yangu si mbaya sana, nakaaga hapo 9, 10. It is not good because in the long term, it will affect your eyes, it will affect your kidneys.
Yes.
And because again, complications for diabetes do not come today. They don't even come next month or next year. So they can allow you to be naughty, but you'll be punished.
That's a powerful statement. So that means you just need to be faithful to follow the treatment.
Yes.
And if you notice anything that is wrong, go back to the
Yes.
doctor.
Yes.
So the treatment is not standard for all, or it's standard?
No, it's not standard for all because it's a journey again.
Yes.
You may start with maybe 1 tablet. Initially, we start with, especially the type 2, we start with tablets. You start with 1 tablet or a combined tablet. Then you're monitoring sugars, and as long as you get, if you get out of the range that I said, 4 to 7, then you know whatever treatment you're using is not working or is starting to fail. Then you introduce another treatment. Then you move on because you're checking frequently. Again, if you find you're getting off target, then you move on. Eventually, you get the pill burden may become so much, and then you may have to go to insulin because insulin does not fail you. That's something viewers must understand. Insulin will always work. The problem with us, the doctors and the patient, is that we wait until too late to start insulin, and then we demonize it. We say it's a bad drug, it kills. It doesn't. It used at the right time is the one that can promise you a good future.
Yeah. Okay. And are there things that would either trigger the sugars to go too high or to go too low in a diabetic patient?
Yes. I start with the too high.
Yes.
Too high is, let's say, like if let's say like it was your birthday and or your wedding anniversary and didn't control the cake, it will push your sugar so high. That means if you take things that have excessive sugar,
Yes.
or you went somewhere and you didn't want people to know you have diabetes, and they're all giving Coke and you're embarrassed, so you took the Coke or the Sprite or whatever soda you want, and you took the sugars will go very high. All the food became too nice, the chapatis became too nice, and you overdo it. You overdo food, carbohydrates, the sugar will go high. Overdo sugary things, the sugar will go high. So excessive intake of carbohydrates will push your sugars very high. That's one.
Yes.
If you are sick or you have an infection, let's say you're doing everything by the book, and suddenly the sugar starts going up, then most likely you have an infection somewhere. And most times it's a urinary tract infection or pneumonia, but commonly it's a urinary tract infection because it doesn't have many symptoms. And you can confuse the symptoms of urinary tract infection with the diabetes. Yeah. Of course, you can have either infection, malaria, any infection that also stress, if you're going through emotional stress, be it whatever, financial, marital, school, all that can also cause the sugar to go up.
Yes.
Now, sugar to go down. Why does the sugar go down? Sugar goes down, one, because you have not eaten and you have taken medicine. If you take medicine and you do not eat, your sugar is going to go down because that medicine continues dropping the sugar whether you are eating or not. So you must eat frequently. That's why you say a diabetic person cannot miss a meal. If lunchtime is at 1, is at 1. It's not at 3. You cannot say I'm in the studio, I'm so busy, I'll catch some bite at 3. No. At 1, and you know you have diabetes, you must eat something.
Yes.
Because if you don't, you're going to get a low sugar. And low sugar is very dramatic. You start feeling shaky, weak, sweating, blurred vision, confusion, and eventually may go into coma within a short period of time.
Yeah.
So people must eat. That's why you said eat morning, break, lunch, 4 o'clock tea, dinner, and pre-bedtime snack. Bite something.
Yes.
If you're driving on a journey, carry food in the dashboard of your car. If you're driving, Again, because if your sugar gets low and you are the driver, you're going to cause an accident to yourself and to another person.
Yes.
So test your sugar and then eat frequently. That's one reason that's patient-rated. Of course, if the dosage of the medicine is higher than your body requires, then sugar is also going to go down. But what is important is to know the signs for low sugar.
Yes.
And to know how to avoid it. Because even when your medicine is causing it, then you get to know it coming, then you deal with it by eating. And eating, you have to eat something sugary. That time you're allowed to take even a soda, you're allowed to take a cake.
When the sugars are low.
Yes, you're allowed to take a chocolate.
Quantities, which ones, Daktari? Lest we take 4 glasses of soda or 6 bars of chocolate.
No, what we say is that you collect it by like the chocolate, you take a few bitings or those things.
Yes, the
Then
bars.
you feel better,
Yes.
then eat normal food.
Okay.
Have a glass of soda, not the whole bottle, then eat normal food.
Okay.
Usually there are those glucose tablets that are sold in the supermarket. Usually you must be having them, should be having them in your pocket, or jelly beans, or if you are very healthy conscious, a banana, you'll peel a banana and eat a banana. The fruits work out very well if you're carrying them, because you just peel a banana and eat. It's a healthy food.
Yes.
And then the sugar comes up and you feel better. Biscuits, and people carry biscuits. By that time, you're allowed to take sweet things, not non-sweet. Do not take Diet Coke or Diet Soda. It will not help you. You have to be the ordinary soda, something with sugar. So that's how you get low sugars.
Okay. Yeah. That means you really must understand yourself to know, oh, my sugars are going down. I need to do something.
Yes, you must know.
Yeah.
You must know. Sometimes you may feel some people feel subtle signs, like you feel like your lip is becoming ticklish. The is coming. Or you find like you are starting to repeat a few words. Like now you're interviewing me,
yes.
Start repeating a few words. Then you notice. You actually know it's coming. But to avoid that, sometimes it's good to avoid it. Sunday, if you're coming to church, do you go to the morning service or do you go to 10 o'clock service?
Yes.
You can't go to 10 o'clock service without having eaten something. Because if it's going to go to 1:1, you're going to get low sugar.
Okay. And you're living in the area where COVID is still here with us. I wanted to ask what risks do patients who have diabetes have in relation to COVID?
That's a very nice question, because COVID has hit the diabetes fraternity badly. The mortality rate, or the risk of suffering a bad consequence from COVID, is quite real in diabetic patients. But also from the word go, the sugars get very wild.
Yes.
They go very high from the time you're having a flu and you find your sugars now are almost not controllable.
Yes.
And you find the disease progresses very fast. You go to pneumonia, ICU. And then when you go in the hospital, when you have complicated COVID, the medicine we use for treating COVID also pushes your sugar very high. So you find most of our patients are being treated not even by injectables, but by insulin pumps, where you're infusing insulin continuously. So it's an issue that, and I think the minister has been tried to explain that people with diabetes and hypertension should be vaccinated. They should not joke about it. Because if you get COVID and you have diabetes, it's a very risky thing.
Okay. Is that what the government keeps saying? If you're having an underlying condition, please take vaccine.
Yes.
So if you have diabetes, please run. Where can they get these vaccines?
Vaccines are everywhere. I mean, there have been nurses giving vaccines that have almost been idle in many hospitals.
Okay. Visit a hospital, get a vaccine.
Yes, there has been a lot of inertia.
Okay. Let's sample a feedback I've gotten from one of my viewers. Remember, our SMS line is 22232. That is 22232. You can also talk to us at Hope TV Kenya. That's on Facebook and YouTube. And I think one of our listeners here is called Sami, viewing us from Kikuyu. Maybe they missed this question, but he's asking, Grace, please ask Daktari if diabetes can be inherited.
The risk of you having diabetes if your parents have diabetes is high. So if your parents have diabetes, you need to change your lifestyle, to improve your lifestyle to a healthy lifestyle from the time you know they have diabetes. Do not wait for you to get diabetes.
Okay. Sawa. One more. Let's talk about preventive measures, What preventive measures can diabetic patient put in place to help them live a healthy life?
When they have diabetes or before they have diabetes?
Before and after, and when you have. Let's do both.
Okay. I think all of us owe it out to ourselves to look at how we eat. The calorie intake is excessive. We are richer. We are eating more than we should, eating less vegetables. And, I always tell my patients, imagine somebody who is working in industrial area from Kibera. They walk to industrial area, and at most lunchtime they eat one chapati, perhaps with nothing. You will be having a buffet lunch in Serena or wherever, and you will drive to that place, and you're parking. You have valet parking. The car will be picked, and you just walk to the restaurant and sit.
Use a lift.
In shopping malls, you find people taking the lifts, and it's only one escalator, and then they wait for the escalator to start moving. So they step on it, and they get climbed to only one floor.
Yes.
I mean, and this is something that I remember somebody in an international meeting photographing the escalator and the staircase. There's not one person on the staircase, but the escalator, if it was COVID times, everyone would have gotten COVID.
Yes.
So I think it's an issue of get out of your way to be physically active, especially the people in urban areas. I know you have a car, but on the weekend, exercise. Lunchtime, take a walk. Walk to church. Don't drive to church, which is 100 meters away.
Yes.
And then we have not very many facilities. Again, the government should be helping, whereby the way we build our roads, we take care of people who want to walk or who want to cycle to work. We must change the narrative that all our roads have a cycling, perhaps boda and cycles, different part. But we need to exercise. And usually we recommend, if you can do like minimum 200 minutes a week of a good exercise that makes you sweat, you'll be doing very well. But some people say, oh, doctor, I'm so busy. I don't know the time. There is always time for yourself.
Yes.
Find time. You can exercise in your bedroom if need be. But food, I think we have to increase our vegetables, our fruits, and let our food be as natural as it possibly can. I know we like processing, and the processing has helped our food security, but let this processed foods take a small part of our diet.
Okay. Okay. One more question from our viewer. You didn't tell us your name, but he's asking, kindly ask Daktari, if one is diagnosed with diabetes at 30 years old, is there a chance of getting off insulin for good?
Now, at 30 years of age, there are two ways about it. If you are diagnosed type 1 diabetes, as mentioned type 1, if you are type 1 at 30, and there are people who have type 1 and they are 30 years of age, you are unlikely to get off insulin because insulin is your treatment of choice.
Yes.
And if somebody tells you what you should do, maybe ask from your doctor to diagnose, to clarify to you whether you have type 1 and type 2, because there are tests that can be done to clarify that. Once it's clarified you are type 1, you know you are going to be with insulin for life because your body lacks insulin, total insulin. But there are other people who are type 2, and because of the way they presented, maybe with very high sugars, they were started on insulin. Chances are, maybe in a month or two, they can go off insulin and go on to tablets. But I think that word to go off insulin for good, I think would be misleading in that I believe if you live long enough with diabetes, at one time you'll use insulin. Because eventually, maybe after 20, 30 years, your pancreas is now down, you need insulin. So I think patients should not, or viewers should not view insulin as an enemy or is a very bad thing. Incidentally, when insulin was discovered, that's when diabetic people started to live.
Yeah.
People never used to live beyond 2 years before insulin.
Oh.
The tablets came much later.
Yes.
So insulin is what gave life to diabetes. The discoverers of insulin got a Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
And up to now, we have not found a better way of delivering insulin. Perhaps when you find a delivery, you can deliver insulin as a tablet because is the true treatment for diabetes if it's delivered properly. So people should not fear it.
Yeah.
They should embrace it. When it comes, use it willingly and enjoy its benefits.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, Dr. You've talked about insulin. Insulin is the most important, is the miracle medicine to help you, anyone with diabetes. And somebody could be asking, I need to be on insulin throughout. That is money. Is there a cheaper way to go around it, you know, or affordable way to treat diabetes?
There is expensive. Some medicine are very expensive. Some tablets are also very, very expensive. Insulin, incidentally, is of those medication is the cheapest because you can, with 500 shillings or 800 shillings, you can have treatment for a month. And most government hospitals have insulin. But I think the thing is the treatment that works.
Yes.
Because if it's working, it will be far much cheaper than using a treatment that is cheap and fails, then you end up getting dialysis or kidney transplant. So no treatment, if it's working, is more expensive. Let's say, if a treatment is working, it's be far much cheaper than those complications. Of course, I appreciate that there are the Kenyans who even putting food on the table is not is an issue.
Yeah.
And I think there it's an issue of now where we talk about government support, politics, having universal health care for all, whereby insulin. So I read today in the newspaper, I'm very excited. Incidentally, yesterday was the World Diabetes Day. And today I read something very exciting that young people below 25 will be getting insulin treatment for free. I hope it comes to fruition because in many countries, insulin is a life-saving drug. It's almost given free.
Yes.
So I think insulin is not the cost of insulin. People don't fear insulin because of the cost, because of needlephobia.
Oh, yeah, it has to be a needle.
Yes, that's the reason that people don't like insulin, because of needlephobia.
Okay.
And they cringe.
Yes.
So they get panicky, and that's why the problem is.
Okay.
Because other patients will use combos or combination of drugs costing tens of thousands, and they don't want to touch insulin. Unfortunately, they use so many drugs, and sometimes they're not working. So there's no point. You're wasting your money.
Yes. And yet insulin will work.
At 1/10 of that price.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So insulin, please don't run away from needles. It will save you. Thank you so much, Dr. We have to call it a day right here. And allow me to give you a minute to give us your parting shots and a word of encouragement to anyone who is suffering from diabetes and the caregivers. Yes, caregivers.
I'd like to thank you very much for the invite, because this is something I like doing, telling people about diabetes, that diabetes is not a death sentence. You can have normal careers, normal families, be called a grandmother, a grandfather, if you look after yourself well. So I think once it is diagnosed, do not run from it. Embrace it and work with your physician and your caregivers to maturity and to succession. I think the issue of also monitoring your sugars is very important. So again, when you go to your doctor, ask about the glucometers, where you can get glucometers. Some companies, this country, are giving free glucometers. Ask who is giving, and then test your sugars more often. So I think I'm encouraged that we have moved pretty far. We have many groups. If in a village or an estate, form a group that you give each other strength, and you find you'll be able to compare notes, and you'll be able to uplift each other when one is down. And and join the bigger groups, because there are also bigger groups of diabetes awareness that can also be very helpful.
Thank you, Daktari, for finding time to be with us. May the Lord bless you and refresh you as you serve many of the patients who come to see you. Thank you. He's called Dr. Paul Ngugi, an endocrinologist, helping us discuss this topic about diabetes. Take home is, please, if you have diabetes, please check your sugars. It's important. Insulin is the best drug. It sorts you out, please. So don't fear needles. And I pray that as you know, you do the simple things that Tari has told us. Eat healthy, exercise, and just love you is the most important thing that you need to do. My name is Grace Kutiso. Wish you a blessed night. Allow us to pause here. Stand by for next programming that is coming up. Is going to be great. I wish you a beautiful night. I'll see you next week, God willing. Catch a repeat of this program, by the way, on YouTube, Facebook, and right here at Top TV. That is tomorrow at around 11. Good night and God bless.